Onnit podcast. John Dudley in the house.
What's up?
My man.
I know, I feel like I'm in, what was that movie with Schwarzenegger where they flipped over the little
All of them?
little glass thing? What was that? Was that like...
Oh, where they flipped the timer over?
Yeah.
There's a movie with Arnold?
I think so.
6 Day?
I don't know, when it runs out of sand, like...
Total Recall? Terminator 1.
I don't even
Terminator
know.
2. Predator.
I was impressed with how you roll with your mic. You go full gangster. He goes way down low with that thing. Like
I got to go low. You know what? Mind Pump taught me this because they were like, what the fuck is that breathing? And it was me. So I'm always like, when I'm listening, it's... So they told me keep the mic low and point it up towards the mouth. That way it's farther away from your nose. Since I always breathe through my nose, then it's less audible.
I think it's because you breathe through a part of your nose. It's not because you breathe.
I can thank Cain Velasquez for that.
Yeah.
He made one nostril twice as big as the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember that day vividly in sparring.
Your dual exhaust is definitely not balanced. So that's where that's coming from. And by the way, for those of you listening right now, one thing you might not know about Kyle is he actually has a fanny pack that makes Rogan's looks like a little bitch.
You know, Rogan hooked me up with his when I went on the show, and he was talking about Andrew Dice Clay.
Yep.
So he's like, Joey, baby, you gotta get the leather. It's so fucking nice. Yo. And he's telling me about it. He does the best. I butchered the Dice impersonation. Sorry for everyone fucking listening, but huge fan of Dice Clay. And he's telling me about it. And I'm like, I tried to order one of these because I've been wanting to order one, and they're like $100 fanny packs. It's fucking real leather, super nice. And so he hooks me up, and I'm like, dude, you've been sold out for months. He's like, I know, I keep a couple of these for special guests. I was like, fuck yeah. And I wear it at weddings, like nice places where I know I just need my wallet, my cell phone, and a can of snooze, maybe a little LSD, whatever. I'm good. But I don't need anything past that. When this thing, it's just too small though. Like I can fucking stuff T-shirts in this. You know, if I'm out at a supermarket or something and I need some handy snacks for the kid, I can throw an extra diaper in here. I got no problems. I'm good to go.
Looks like one of my portable sleeping bags, actually, with a
like,
waist strap.
I could fit a fucking mat. These could be your whole fucking outfit.
Yeah, you can.
What do you call those? Rogan had you break that term down.
Like a bivvy sack?
There we go. Bivvies.
Yeah, you could definitely do 2 days on the mountain with that fanny pack right there. And do you have a bottle opener on the side? That's pretty hot.
No, but I could add one.
What is that?
This guy? This is a lock. I talked about this in depth. It's a pack safe. There, you won't see it on the video. It must have sounded like an ad looking back in hindsight because I fucking sang the gospel on Rogan's for these guys. But basically, when I traveled to Central and South America for a month, I heard about slash and grabs. Yep. So you can lock all this shit and then lock it up, push this button, and nobody can yank shit open. It's got like steel mesh through it, so you literally cannot slash and grab.
Yeah.
And it's got the RIFD blocker in there, so people can't steal your web info and Apple Pay info when you're going through airports.
Go Gadget front fanny pack.
Yeah. But I did get one upped. If I'm gonna say there's a better version out there, size isn't everything in life. But Tim Kennedy's buddy Shane, you know, these guys are always fucking packing, right? And it's Texas, so of course they're packing.
Yep.
But he's got I was like, what the fuck do you keep in that thing? And he's got like a fucking giant
Glock 23 or something.
A giant fucking gun in there, everything, extra magazines, and then of course wallet, whatever else he wants, you know. But it's just like one size bigger, you know. And I was like, man, I think I could fit my Glock 19 in this. Just move some stuff around, maybe carry a little less tobacco and be good.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Rogan gave me one of his super wedding packs, as you call them.
The leather.
Yeah. But it's like 1 inch short of my waist.
And they don't go bigger, right?
Well, they do now, but the problem is you like go full big boy big. So I'm like, I'm that person on the airplane that doesn't really want to have to ask for the extension. But you know that you have to have it in order to make it work. It's like that close. I think if I was a 34 and a half waist, I could get that thing.
What's your waist though?
Probably 35 and a half.
And you're 6'6"?
I wear 34s. You're
about 6'6"?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wear 34s.
Can you fit in his? The one he gave you?
Uh-huh.
All right.
I can now. But it's not It's not around my pants. It's around the waist.
And that's the thing.
That's the issue.
Maybe
I
I'm
can't
wearing
put it
it
around
too
the
low.
past. You gotta hike it
higher?
up a little bit.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it won't go like my belt and all that shit. It won't fit around that. It won't fit around the hips.
Yeah, well, just so you know, too, I learned this from my wife. In England, fanny means a different thing.
They told me that. It's pussy for everyone listening.
Yeah. So
it's a pussy pack.
yeah, I remember I was there and I was with their family, and for some reason we were getting on the subject of, I don't know, someone was being bad, and I just said, need to get their fanny slapped. And like her sister gave me this look, and I thought, yeah, that has to mean something else.
But they're the fucking funniest culture because they call everyone wears them on their ass, so they call them bum bags.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But they'll tell you to your face like John's a great cunt. That guy's a funny cunt. And they just throw cunt out there like it's like just.
I think that's Australia more.
Maybe that was another butchered accent. Yeah. But yeah, I think they do use cunt though the same way. Like both cultures.
Yep.
Throw it out there like, yeah, he's a good cunt.
Yep. It's interesting. Well, what do you want to talk about?
Well, we got a couple things here, so I was hoping we could split this in half, like a 50-50 episode.
Yeah, I was wondering what
you made a little post today to your audience, and you had some questions. You told them we were going to be coming on the Onnit podcast. What are the questions? And we got a fucking slew of great questions. So I want to do a little Q&A for the listeners. And even though this will be out months after the fact, it'll still be valuable information. And then also I wanted to circle back to some origin story. I want to
Wolverine origins?
Yeah, Wolverine origins. And we'll do spin-offs, right? We'll get a Deadpool origin. But yeah, man. I mean, what got you started in all this? We were talking earlier about in the car when I picked you up in the airport about growing up with the Guida brothers.
Yeah.
Playing football, wrestling, doing crazy shit.
Yeah, well, I've played football a lot with Jason, which I didn't know you knew Jason, which is kind of cool. From Ultimate Fighter, was it?
Ultimate Fighter Season 8.
That's awesome. And then, Clay was younger, but I told you some crazy Jason stories. You were talking to me about why Jason slaps Clay so hard.
Slaps the shit out of him every fight.
And I said that's probably how he, like, knowing Jason, that's just how he wakes someone up in the morning, So I don't
get
think
out of bed. It's a school day.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything different. But yeah, it was a pretty fun community to grow up in. Small little Illinois town called Johnsburg. And the Guida brothers were wrestling and doing crazy stuff, surviving down in this little kind of it was a small part of town, Pistachey Highlands, that's what it was called. And meanwhile, I was at parties earning gas money, shooting eggs off 2-liter pop bottles. I'd carry my bow around and we'd be at parties, and I would just say, anyone.
You just had it over your back.
I had it in my truck.
A long bow?
Yeah.
You just fucking show up to a party with your fucking arrow satchel at your side.
I'd wait till everyone got wasted and then just start betting people on whether or not I could shoot eggs off these 2-liter pop bottles, and that's what I do. Just shoot eggs.
So did your parents get you into archery pretty young?
Yeah, I really started it as a hunter. I mean, my family was down in Mississippi, did a lot of hunting. It's just kind of part of the culture. If you're from the South, you're into deer hunting and turkey hunting.
And hillbilly hand fishing.
Yep. Noodling or grabbing, frog gigging. Like, people don't get that either. But yeah, I remember being 4 years old, crawling around in all of the little. Let's see, they were kind of, I don't know, I called them ditches, but they were all the little canals that ran along the edges of the cotton fields down in the Mississippi Delta. And we would kind of cruise around and gig bullfrogs and, pretty much dodge water moccasins. And I don't know, I tell my wife some of the stories about things that my parents would let me do. They just, they'd go to work, and then I actually don't remember it. I think once I was from 4 to 7, I don't think I saw a parent during the day. So yeah, you just go out and dodge water moccasin strikes and gig frogs and, shoot turtles with a BB gun. I mean, it was true hillbilly stuff. But I think that's what makes the South special. You have to have some of that stuff.
Yeah, a little deeper connection to nature there.
Yeah. And
we'd go in canals and grab crawdads and shit like that. I think that was the most terrifying nature we saw in the Bay Area, California.
Some crawfish.
Fucking crawfish.
Yeah. It's amazing how terrifying those things look when they rear back and get those little pinchers out. It's like,
well, especially when you're like 6 years old.
Yeah.
You think it's going to fucking take a finger off.
Yeah. I was in Florida one time. Yeah, it was in Florida, Naples, Florida. We bought some hermit crabs on the side of the road, and I bought this big sucker. I mean, it was in a full-blown conch shell. I don't know how old that thing was, but could have been prehistoric. And he would never come out, and I was just getting pissed off, and I was holding this big conch shell, and there was just that one big claw that, like, blocked the opening. And I was sitting there just, like, tapping on it, like, freaking come out. You know, I wanted to see how big he was. And I remember someone asked me something across the room, and I kind of looked, and I was tapping, and he must have opened that claw when I was looking the other way, and I like went in there and he got me. And I mean, he was locked on, and I remember just running around with this big conch shell on my freaking fingers, screaming like a little girl. And yeah, that was the last hermit crab I had, and I'm surprised I still have my finger. That thing was vicious. But yeah, that was all the crazy little stuff I got into, and then somehow decided to take up archery because it was, for me, it was more challenging than hunting with a gun. And then once I started, I don't know, I feel like I've always gravitated towards something that I wasn't really good at because I want to figure it out. And because it wasn't easy, you know, I just wanted to figure it out. So and then fast forward through towards the end of my high school career, when I like actually got into shooting professionally, I was actually rehabbing my knee from football because I had strained it, and I was driving down this little side road in Illinois, and actually Clay would probably know where that road was, but I saw this little sign that said archery tournament or archery shoot or something, and I kind of thought, oh, what's that? You know, because when I was hunting and kind of doing my archery stuff, there wasn't like real targets. Now they have 3D targets that look like animals. They're made out of three-dimensional foam. They have scoring rings in there. It was just I don't know, it was at a different stage archery. But then when I went to that one shoot, they had like real targets. There were guys there with gear that I'd never seen. There's guys with like pro jerseys on. And I was just like, what is going on right now? You know, the days of just carrying your bow in your truck and shooting eggs off pop bottles in the yard are like long gone. This is a whole new game now. And I went out and I sucked so bad at it. I lost all my arrows after about halfway, and literally was pissed, left the parking lot, drove up to Wilmot, Wisconsin, bought some arrows at this Gander Mountain store, drove back just so I could finish. And then I remember all the guys that did good had these jerseys on with the name of a local archery shop that was about 45 minutes from us. And literally Monday morning I was in that shop, just like being the weird guy, staring at everyone in the corner, just like, what's he buying? What is that thing? And I was in the range going, well, what's that sight do? Why is your stabilizer so long? Like, you know, asking all the questions. And then, you know, literally fast forward 11 months, left a football scholarship for $4 an hour, working in an archery shop, pouring concrete, shooting bows. Fast forward another year and a half, I'm shooting professionally and shooting all over the world. I mean, that's just weird how it works.
It's a pretty rapid rise.
It was.
And you've been all over the world, right? You've done competitions
all over. Yeah. Probably pushing 2 million miles now.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm getting close to my third passport.
Fuck. And they're all stamped out.
Yeah, with extensions. Yeah. Yeah.
I only had one passport that I had stamped out from doing tours for the troops. So we'd go on like 1-2 week tour to Southwest Asia, as they call it, and hit like 10 countries in the Middle East, that kind of thing.
You don't get the stamps like you used to now.
No? It's been a minute since I've gone anywhere, so.
I mean, you used to, like, if you cross the border, you're getting a stamp before. Now, sometimes they just kind of, maybe it's just mine, they just kind of look at it and just throw it back at me. Plus, I've got a passport now that's just a card. Like, sometimes
I've seen those.
Yeah, sometimes I travel with the paper ones, sometimes I don't. I was all bummed out because when I filled my first one, I thought, yeah, that's filled. I'm going to get the second one. And then I sent it off, and they sent it back, and they just, like, they literally taped another passport inside of it. It's like got like cell tape, like putting in more. It's like page extensions is what they called it. So it like protrudes out a little bit. It looks all ganky, but I don't know.
Have a spot for it in the fanny pack.
I'm filling this one. Surely they're not going to put another one in there. And yeah, after that one, they killed it. They drilled a hole in it, and that's it. It's retired.
The card thing seems weird to me because it seems like that's the fucking easiest thing to fake. Like, it seems like that would be a real issue for people trying to do some Silk Road shit, you know, have some different identities and skirt around.
There's probably something weird on it that we don't know about, like some kind of weird ink or something.
Chip, hologram.
Yeah, something kind of fishy going on there. I always got, certain countries always question me pretty hard too, because funny enough, both times I went for my passport pictures, normally I cut my own hair, but since it was my passport, I thought I should get a proper haircut. So I just went to a barber. So I got straight up high and tights both times.
They give you the fucking crew cut.
So I mean,
there's one haircut at this barber shop.
Yeah. So as soon as they look at it, they're like, okay, this guy is definitely working for the military, because it was straight up $7 high and tight. Like, you can tell them you want to feather it a little bit or kind of like it to the side. It did not matter. That sucker cuts one style. If there's the lollipop in front of there, they cut one style of haircut. and that's what I got both times. So
you started in archery. I mean, well, you started in hunting, get big on the archery scene, and you've circled back. Did you ever stop hunting in that time, or did you just start getting into it more as you got older?
Hunting's always been top priority for me. I have a saying that I say quite often is I'm a target archer to be a better bow hunter, and I'm a bow hunter, a better bow hunter because I'm a target archer. I really wanted to become more accurate as a bow hunter, which is why I started shooting at some clubs and shooting at some targets. I just wanted to be a better bow hunter because, you know, my first several years, I missed a lot. I'd wait a long time for an opportunity, and then, you know, when it came down to it, I'd come unglued. You and I actually talked about this today when we were coming here from the airport. We were talking about kind of performance anxiety and how you deal with, you know, like adrenaline if you've never had to deal with it before. We were talking, I think we were on the subject of Clay and Jason. You were saying, I don't know why some fighters want to get so ramped up before they go in, because once the cage closes, like, that's coming anyway. So you kind of need to keep yourself contained until you need it. And I was saying, I think there's this fine line when it comes to that fight or flight trigger, to where if it happens too early, you know, if it happens very early, some of your adrenaline can wear off and you can compose yourself again. But if it happens like at just the right amount of time before you have to perform, if you've never dealt with it, it's almost overwhelming. Like like I told you, I've seen people that I've been hunting with that literally pull their bow back. I'm like, dude, no arrow. You don't have an arrow in there, because they're just so jacked up from having an animal that close to them. Especially the more dangerous. Like, I've been on hunts with guys that are doing like grizzlies. Bears for the first time is pretty common. And some guy, you know, every now and then, like Andy Stumpf, mutual friend of ours, he went on a elk hunt with me earlier. It was last year. His first ever hunt. We're hunting elk, but we both had bear tags and deer tags too, and we're covering a lot of miles. I think we were averaging maybe about 11 miles a day. covering ground. And we came around this one corner, and here's some big boar bears, like kind of, there was actually 3 of them, and they were just brawling it out in this, like, we're literally in the middle of nowhere. And here's these 3 boars just like brawling it out, and they're fighting over this patch of like green clover. And I told Andy, I said, load up, dude. And he's like, what? I'm like, load up. We're going to smoke one of these suckers. And he's like, all right. And he ended up, kind of things happened fast. He ended up missing, and then it went off. And because the bear didn't know what that sound was, it actually came back to the sound. So I could see it. I could see the bushes moving, and I could see his legs posturing underneath the foliage. And I said, reload, reload. And he's like, what? And I said, reload, pull back. And I said, point your bow right there. I said, he's coming. And all of a sudden he came out, and, we were face to face with this thing, and he stuffed one right in his chest. And he's just like, well, that's kind of cool. And I just looked at him like, are you not jacked at all? And he's like, should I be? And I'm
fucking
like,
Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck you. You're the least fun to hunt with out of anybody.
Yeah. I said, I kind of want to, thought for sure I'd hear a little fart or something. It's kind of a little squeak over there. But no, he was all cool and composed. And it was because all that happened so fast. But there's also times where, if something comes in, you're looking at it and you start thinking about what you're going to do. And it seems like the more time you have to think about it, sometimes that can be a negative because you overthink the situation. I feel like I'm that way sometimes when I go golfing. If I really haven't thought about golfing and I go and just swing, I can hit good for the first few times. But then once I start thinking about what I need to do to make a good golf swing, then it totally goes to crap.
Yeah, knees slightly bent, shoulders down and back, arms straight. Look at the ball. Look at the target.
You know more about it than I do.
Well, there's fucking. I had a buddy of mine when I was at ASU who was a club pro down in Chandler, and so I'd get to golf for free, and he'd give me free privates, and I'd teach him some shit and hook him up with some weed, and it was a great deal, And so, but it's funny because like even with a guy that's that high level, the best guys will dumb it down for you, And he did a great job doing that for me. I can't golf for shit now. I haven't touched a club in 10 years, but then I was getting all like decent enough to play with others and not hit it off into fucking somebody else, And that's the thing though. There's so much to remember, but in your situation, it'd be like if the golf ball only touched the tee for a moment. Like you have just a moment where the golf ball's there where you can even take a crack at it. Mm-hmm. Right?
For like if you're relating it to a hunting situation, shot opportunities it's a window. It's a window of time. But it's funny, like what you said about your buddy dumbing things down. Now, I guess my reputation as a coach has really flourished, over these last few years. And the reason I think people relate to me is because everything that I teach is really based off everything that I learned that I personally did the wrong way for a long time. And, there were 20 years where I was trying to figure out, I was reading what I can, picking other people's brains. And I literally feel like I did every single thing wrong before I figured out the way that was right. And so now I've kind of dumbed down my whole archery process to where it's systematic. It's very minimal in the system, but it's easier for people to remember it, and it focuses on the most common areas where form breaks down. So, I'm literally eliminating the majority of a lot of mistakes people make, and I think because it's so simplified, the mass majority of people can pick it up and be good very quick. And I think that's, when it comes to any sport, anyone I've ever learned, if I wasn't good at it, it's because I didn't know the fundamentals correct at the very, very beginning. But if you learn the fundamentals from the very, very, very beginning, then, it's that way. And it seems like in any sport, no matter how high of a level you get, when teams really break down, it seems like it's always a fundamental breakdown. Like for football, it's tackles when they're like, how can they not make a tackle?
Or they shoot themselves. They're fucking getting delay game penalties on the offense.
Yeah.
Shit like that.
Yeah. I mean, like snap count, like you would think, okay, how many, what are we, 15, 20 years in, what on two means, right? Guy coming across, you have to make a tackle, get low, shoulder across, wrap up, right? I mean, then it seems like, okay, this guy's been playing 20 years. He's still trying to grab a sleeve. Like,
he's still not square.
Yeah.
I'm going to come and hit him from an angle.
It always comes to fundamentals, and I assume it's probably the same way in fighting,
No doubt. Yeah, the best in the world. It's fun. I look at jiu-jitsu especially. The best in the world in jiu-jitsu, even if they can do some crazy shit like a flying armbar or whatever, they've mastered the basics. And that's the only way they get to those crazy finishes is through mastery of the basics and employing that. You just don't see it. Like most people don't witness that level of excellence in the basics. Like Hodger Gracie, when I forget which worlds he won. And I'm sorry for all the jiu-jitsu fans that know I'm fucking this up, but I think he finished everyone with a mounted Ezekiel choke, front Ezekiel. He did like 4 guys in a row. Best in the world. He fucking mounts them, puts them in this same little, like, it's coming and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter, right? And it was not only his approach, it was the way he would systematically gain that position and then that choke, no matter what. And he did it on every fucking single guy to the championship.
Even when you knew it was coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal, right?
See, that's what I think makes it impressive is the fact that he's honed it in that much to where it's that sharp that even when someone knows that it's coming, he can still just say, this is how it works. And I mean, football's like that too. One of my early coaches told me, every single offensive play is designed to score if all 11 guys literally hit their man, right? But then obviously you got the defensive side has kind of, the same counter. So it's funny when even at a pro level, like a 34 dive scores a freaking touchdown because you're like, okay, this is literally day one of Pee Wee football. You literally learn that play. You literally learn guard pushes in, tackle pushes out, we literally have a 34 dive. Everyone picks up a guy and, literally let the running back beat the safety and we got a touchdown. And it's funny when you see that play score even in the NFL. But, again, it just comes down to basics and really refining that in.
Yeah, and so much of that comes like how do you master anything in life? It's consistency. And it's like every football coach, it's not perfect. It's not a what is it? What is it on perfection? God damn it. Alpha brain kick in. I ate carbohydrates today. That's my fail safe here. It's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect, right?
I'm a big
and
believer
consistency in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Like and it's kind of like Bruce Lee would say. He's not afraid of the man who knows 10,000 kicks. He's afraid of the man who's done one kick 10,000 times.
Yep.
Because that's a fucking perfect kick.
Yep.
He knows exactly the angle, the distance, the timing, all of it. It's all built in, right? So working those things over and over again correctly. Because if you take anybody in MMA or football or wherever, if they train like shit with a shit coach you got to unpack all that before you get to build something new. So it must be easier for you as a coach to work with guys that are fresh.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Women are typically the best athletes to coach because there's not a macho factor. They really are they want to know the process. They're like really interested in it. You can tell them to do something and they just kind of put what they think they know to the side and then they just do it. Whereas a lot of guys are like, it's a bow, give it to me, I'll show you how it works. I've been doing this since I was a caveman. But, and then they're like, oh shit, I ripped the skin off my forearm. It's like, yep, okay, can I show you how to do it now, please? I think with any of that stuff, having I like having fresh clay as a, I don't mind someone that's very, I guess, advanced in their skill. A lot of times, and I'm not sure if it's like this in your field, but what I find with competitive athletes in archery is, there's this cycle. They'll learn a lot, try to get to a level where they're good. They become really good. They kind of have their heyday. A new guy moves in, starts to kind of be the top dog. They'll start to doubt what they're doing. Maybe they'll change some things, or they'll try to fall onto some placebos of equipment that they think might help them change. And then all of a sudden they lose confidence, and then they get to the point where they're like falling back to a coach like me, where, at one point they didn't really feel like they needed. And then they come back and they're like, what do I need to do? And, for me, normally it's like, okay, we're going to go right back to the basics. This, but let's, we're going to strip everything down. We're going to start at the beginning. And then we're just literally going to just start archery at 101 and move forward. And then all of a sudden they're right back to level 10 quick because, they've eliminated so much of the, I guess, a lot of times it's confusion within your own mind. It's self-doubt. Self-doubt derails way more high-level athletes, I think, than other athletes around them. That's one thing with archery is it's an individual sport, and one of the hardest hurdles to overcome is realizing that if you have a shot that's good enough to get you there, that's all you need to do. I mean, it's not like my perfect shot shoots a 10, but now all of a sudden there's this competitor next to me that can shoot an 11. I mean, he still shoots 10s. I still shoot 10s. All I need is my shot that gets me here to shoot that 10. But it's funny the way the brain works. All of a sudden you start thinking, well, this guy's got more than I got, which he doesn't. Both your arrows are scoring the same thing if they both hit home. It's just a matter of who has the most confidence in their game. That's really who comes out ahead, at least at the higher levels. And that's what's really hard to teach the younger people. Like you said, someone that's done the same kick 10,000 times, he's probably going to get way further than knowing 10,000 kicks that he's tried once. I relate this in archery to guys that have multiple bows. They have like multiple release aids, which lets the string grow. There's like different styles. Guys that'll try, different arrows every week. I mean, you never, with like martial arts, you are the tool. So, it's not like you're going out and this time you get to fight with, some kind of new glove, and next
I'll
time
have an 89-inch reach in my next fight. Let me just test that out.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine if you could do that. Mm-hmm. Imagine how many fighters would probably lose their freaking minds. Like if fighters could adjust themselves, like on a video game where you're like, I'm going to go in full power this time, but my flexibility is going to be lower. If you could adjust those things, imagine how messed up some guys, like some of the greats probably would have never been the greats, because they would have been playing with all these things rather than just refining their one tool themselves. Mm-hmm. That's what gets hard with archery. Golf would be another good example, because you have clubs, you have different balls. It's all placebos. And I think anytime you have more offerings of placebos, people lose less ability to really refine their mental strength. And, that's, for me, I think a lot of my success and a lot of my repeatability and most of my accuracy right now falls off the fact that some of the stuff that I have on my bow is, they don't even make it anymore, because it's just like, companies are like, why are you still shooting that? We don't even sell it. Can you please use the new one? And it's just like, it worked. Like, I figured out how to use it. I can do it in my sleep. It doesn't matter how long I've practiced or how little I've practiced. it feels the exact same to me, and my muscle memory just agrees with it, you know. And I think a lot of athletes out there, if they took that advice, they would probably make leaps and bounds at a way faster rate than being the fast one to just change equipment all the time, because you never learn your body. You know, you have to be in tune with your body.
Yeah, there's something to that in MMA, you know, where guys, they kind of do the merry-go-round from camp to camp. Like, I want to train with this guy, I want to train with that guy. And there's something to training in a lot of different places, you know, not a lot, but a few different places where you get a different look from different coaches, a different look from different sparring partners, maybe some new ideas. And if your base level foundation is high enough, you can take those bits and pieces and add them to your game and to your toolbox, right? Because you know who you are as a fighter. But a lot of people that just bounce from camp to camp, they never have a home base. They're never rooted in philosophy. Mm-hmm. So when they get to the fight, it's like, I want to try this out, or I want to try that out. Or you get a coach that, you know, I had a coach that fucking changed the game plan 3 times in camp. And I was like, no, it's the original fucking game plan, for better or worse. Mm. It doesn't get changed 4 weeks before the fight. It doesn't get changed 2 weeks before the fight a third time. It's game plan 1. Yep. And if that fails, then we fucking make accommodations and adjustments. That's it, you know? And that was the best game plan by far. So it's just, it's funny though, because, you know, that I guess could be that one thing, you know, or who else is chiming in, you know, those kind of things get into it. How much in your coaching do you focus on quieting the mind, stilling, especially, I mean, obviously it's a big deal in competition, but especially in hunting when you have that elk fever or whatever animal's in front of you?
Yeah, well, I don't really get to go that deep with, there's not a lot of hunters that are trying to get to like that type of level. When it comes to competitive archers, you know, that's almost like, that's a pretty high level tier where you know, because a lot of people at first you're trying to really just get them to the point where you know they understand the difference between a good shot and a bad shot. Then you also want them to get to the point where they're able to identify those and correct. One of my big things as a coach is teaching people that at a high level, every high level archer out there is going to make a mistake throughout a weekend of tournaments. Someone's going to shoot a bad arrow. The ones that continually are on the podiums are the ones that when they make one bad shot, they don't let it turn into 2. Or if they make 1 or 2, they don't let it turn into 5, 6. Like, they don't go ends upon ends where they're like, yeah, on my scorecard, I just had that 20 minutes where I was just off. They identify when they have a breakdown, and you know, as soon as the wheel's wobbly, they can correct it and get back on track faster than the other guys that are having maybe the same issues. And that's the case in like when you're dealing with shooting with wind. You know, all of a sudden the wind starts changing. You get a 10-mile-an-hour crosswind. You get someone that shoots down there and they look and they know that their form was tight, their shot broke tight, and they're 8 inches off. You know, they can, if they know they're set up well enough, they can, you know, compensate with like their level, or they might make a few clicks on their sight, and then they're just pounding. Then all of a sudden maybe that wind switches to a headwind or a tailwind, which sometimes a headwind can give your arrow lift and sometimes it can give it push. So just like reading, you know, making that one shot and having enough faith in your shot to where when you look down there at 70 meters in the spotting scope and you're like, okay, that's pushed out the top, then you can make adjustments and get back on track. Whereas the guys that are in 4th, 5th, 6th place, that might take them 5, 6, 7 arrows to get that. So I think depending on their level, teaching them how to quiet their mind, get back on track. I don't know, every athlete is so different too. It depends on the level. When you're working with beginners or intermediate people, you can teach them basics on, you know, if you feel like your heart rate's ramping up, you know, you really need to, I'm really big on finding some type of a trigger to try to bring to try to get control of my conscious thoughts again. One thing that I was taught was when you're conscious, it takes your conscious thought to trigger fight or flight. So like an adrenaline trip isn't really going to happen from a subconscious. You have to see something. Your conscious thoughts have to be fixated on the fact of, I'm stepping in the octagon right now. This is a fight. And then all of a sudden you're like, here, okay, maybe for some it's when the cage closes. Maybe for some that trigger starts right when their music starts, when they're walking out. And trying to regain control of your conscious mind to where the subconscious starts doing the breathing and, kind of your heart rate. If you let that fall onto the subconscious, it tends to go back down to baseline. If your conscious is thinking about the breathing and the heart rate, it seems to like spike. You can consciously really think about controlling your breathing and managing your breathing, and then your heart rate will come down with that. But if you let the two of them just kind of have a free-for-all, then you're in for literally a ride of adrenaline. So when is that going to wear off? For some it might be there for a while, and then here comes the crash. For some they realize it's happening and they're like, whoa, I don't want to go out of this cannon totally loose like this with jacked full of adrenaline where I'm tremor, and I have to pull this in to where it's manageable for me. And I've always found that your conscious thoughts are what's going to pull that stuff back to baseline. You have to be able to, you have to be in those situations. The more you put yourself in those situations, the more you deal with it, which is for me why I don't compete now, is because I would feel completely different competing right now, because the way my schedule is, there's no way I could just go on all the tours. When I shot before, I would shoot up to 30 to 35 professional events in a year. I mean, that's almost every 3 days, every weekend almost, I was at an event competing. So there was only ever 3 or 4 days between competitions where I was at home. I was probably changing equipment, maybe taking a day off, trying to get, what I could done at work. And I was constantly like in the ice. I mean, I was in the ice water the whole time. I never came out and like acclimated the other way. I feel like it's harder to like step away and then come back in with that game face and like to deal with those nerves when you haven't, but when you have control of them and you've got the death grip on them and you haven't let go yet, it's really easy to ride it out. So now I try to compete enough to where I feel like I can manage, and I shouldn't say compete, but I like to shoot and stay on edge as an archer. I like to go to events. I pick a couple of events a year where I'll go and shoot in front of crowds, or, I'll shoot in front of big groups at schools or something where I'm performing. Sometimes I'll just do practice rounds where I just go live. I'll just turn on my live feed and literally just let people watch me shoot. Because for me, I know there's thousands of people that are watching, and if I miss an arrow, and I'm striving to shoot a perfectly clean round. I'm trying to shoot a perfect 300 if I'm shooting an indoor round. I know people are watching. I know they're keeping track of my score. So I try to put myself in those situations, not because I want to compete anymore, but because I want to be able to manage my nerves when it comes to hunting. Like I want to be able to, in my mind, when the shot presents itself, like you were talking about that small window, for me, my trigger word, like when I know this is like TKO time, when I say checkmate, when I call checkmate, like it's game over. I know that thing is going to be leaking.
Does that word pop in your head when you're hunting as well?
Oh, people have told me they've heard me say it. Like when I'm in that zone, I don't really recognize that I get there, but a lot of people tell me I have this like weird intensity that sometimes is cold.
Psycho.
But it's I don't know. It is a life or death situation. It's not necessarily for me. Depending on the animal, it could be, but I'm just really intent on making a perfect shot, and I just, I'm like really, it's like, I don't know, it's like a match for me. It's a chess match, and these things are really, really smart. They're wild animals that are surviving every day of their life. They're not like us where they can all of a sudden, because they're in their car and going to In-N-Out Burger, that, it's like if humans had to live during Mad Max time, we would all be pretty damn in tune to surviving.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, could happen. And you'll want to have hunting skills when that happens, by the way. Otherwise, you're going to have some crazy guy popping up going, checkmate. Freaking what? Oh! Yeah. No, I've always felt like, as a hunter, if you're getting serious about shooting something, you need to be 100% serious on being the best you can at it. And that's why I started shooting target archery. That's still to this day why I train. I'm not going and lifting and training every day to go and
to have this glorious body before me.
Yeah, I don't post shirtless photos. So no, I'm 100% doing it because if I get a call and someone says, do you want to go do this hunt? I want to be able to go. Like, I want to be able to go right now, and I want to be able to, I've got some pretty basic rules. I like to be the first guy out in the morning. I like to be the last guy back, and I like to, I don't know. I don't ever like it when my guide is in better shape than me. But there's sometimes, no matter how much I've tried to make that not happen, there's some studs out there that just like run mountains every day, and
you're not signing up for that shit.
Yeah, well, I would sign up, but you can't keep up. Like some of these guys that have done it their whole life, it's almost like their lungs are of a whole different anatomy.
They're like the Sherpas.
Yeah,
taking people up.
exactly. Yeah, it's a perfect example. You look at people that have like shoes that are like put on their feet with duct tape or something, and no long johns or whatever, and you're up there and wool and down and freezing your nuts off and got the best boots you could buy, and you're still like, oh man, my freaking ankles, I got a blister on my toe, and then you look over and you're like, okay, yeah, you gotta shut up here. These guys
I have fucking scars on my heel from last fall when I did my first hunt.
Really?
Yeah, because I had brand new fucking boots, and we did 15 miles a day for the first 2 days, then had to scale it back because it was wearing, like, getting close to the bone.
Andy had quite a beauty. He got a heck of a blister too the first day, and he taught me a pretty good tip, actually. I didn't know duct tape worked so good. I started just duct taping my feet, and it worked really good. I'm gonna see if I can find Andy's hole in his foot. It was I just told myself, I'm like, don't be a baby around this guy. Freaking gotta get after it.
It's funny you mentioned that, though, going back about not wanting to be ready at all times, you know. And I've wanted to get into bow hunting for a while, and I've actually had quite a few people tell me about you before coming to Onnit, and I just had Ben Greenfield hit me and Aubrey up, and Aubrey's obviously got his book launch, but he was like, hey man, I'm going back to Big Island, gonna go bow hunting, and invited us, and I was like, motherfucker, I still don't have a bow and I haven't practiced, and I'm like, I can't, I'm a fucking liability.
I think they're going real quick, aren't they?
Yep.
He's going with Ryan.
Yeah, he's going like ASAP, in a week or two.
Yeah, Ryan sent me a message, asked me if I wanted. I think they're spearfishing too.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the fucking greatest trip of all time.
We'll get you dialed in today, and we'll see if we can get you on point in like a 5-day training. Those trips, it sucks when you get invited on something like that and you can't do it.
It was a complete fucking bummer.
Yeah.
Absolute bummer. But I also know from experience too, like there's just 0 point right now. It's like when I was on The Ultimate Fighter, I was barely a white belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was on Coach Noguera, so one of the greatest heavyweight jiu-jitsu artists is my coach for 8 weeks. He brings in Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida, both black belts in jiu-jitsu. And I look back on that time and I think of what a fucking waste it was that I wasn't a higher belt.
Yeah.
Because like I would have learned so much more as a purple belt or a brown belt. And they had to teach me just the fucking dumbed down, like like here's a guillotine. Here's how you fight hands, just like this is what guard is.
Yeah.
Like shit like that, So, but that's nice to be able to look back on that and then know like, all right, I want to be at a certain level. So when I get that invite, it's yeah, let's do it. And thankfully Aubrey's got a nice pad. There's a spot to go to and we've got places in town here in Austin. It's a good community in Texas. It's not like I'm in California. So there's plenty of places to go shooting and
yeah, you're in a great spot here. You've got a great archery shop here. Archery Country's in town. You can shoot at Aubrey's, obviously. Yeti's got some cool stuff. I mean, you've
Yeti's great, man.
Yeah.
They're freaking awesome people, man. They've been hooking us up. They sent me out a giant cooler. I was like, just having this makes me want to go camping now. Like just having this giant cooler.
Yeah.
It probably takes up the entire trunk of my Prius, but that's cool. I think I might be the only guy in Texas with a Prius, but
No.
that's all good. Well, shit, I think we're burning through time here. Let's get to these questions because you had some really good questions people wrote in.
All right, I'm gonna hand them over, and
I'll read them out, and I'll let you jump on it first, and I'll piggyback on stuff that I know about. Fuck that, man.
Your opinions.
They damn sure want your opinion. There's certain things for sure that I won't be able to answer, like repetitive stress injuries when it comes to archery.
Well, we don't have to talk about that.
No, man, that's her. You're the fuck got the bionic bicep. I'm sure people want to know about that. Let's take it from the top.
That's right at the top. Yep, that's right up there at the.
Straight Way Outdoors asks, middle-aged man asks, does Onnit offer vitamin supplements that are type 1 diabetic, insulin dependent friendly? Are there any techniques offered that incorporate kung fu or other Eastern philosophy? I'm curious because I recently started Tai Chi for health and absolutely love it. Is there academy or trainer in Dallas? So we don't have an academy in Dallas. I kind of want to tease this guy for asking if we have kung fu, but I'm taking this as a serious question. Oddly enough, I would make fun of kung fu. I won't make fun of Tai Chi because Paul Chek got me into Tai Chi. It's a fucking amazing practice for movement meditation. So a lot of people bitch to me like, I can't sit in a room quietly, or I can't sit in a dark room, or I need something, right? So I tell them, Aubrey and I are big proponents of binaural beats, things like that. You can listen to this thing. It's brainwave entrainment, and that really helps with meditation. But Tai Chi is excellent, and it gets you outdoors. There's something about being in nature, right? Dr. Andy Galpin talked about that in his book.
Grounding.
Grounding, man. Right. Yeah, take your fucking shoes off. There's no doubt. Type 1 diet, I mean, we don't make anything medically available. So, and in fact, we're not allowed to say any one of our products, but as a supplement in nature, I don't think any supplement company can make a medical claim. So disclaimer, but aside from that, I think that anything that helps blood sugar management is going to be good. A lot of the products that we offer from Power Food Active and Vitality, the recovery proteins, they're all going to be low glycemic, which will help. Type 1 diabetes is a tricky deal, because it's not like you fucked up and you likely had it your whole life, right? But I would say the products that have little to do with blood sugar that are going to be good are going to be Alpha Brain, Total Gut Health, things like that. Active B can help with energy production and things of that nature. And then if you're in Dallas, man, just come down, get your ass out here for a certification. If you do, we do the kettlebell certs, steel mace certs, any of these things. And I'll talk quite a bit about those things as we get into some of the other questions that we looked at earlier. But those are excellent because you can learn something in a weekend that you can take with you the rest of your life. And people always ask me like, hey, what do I do if I can't make it to the gym, or I can't do this or I can't do that? Like, buy one fucking kettlebell, leave it in your car or leave it at your house, and you always have a gym with you. You can hit your entire body with that. Between the kettlebell and bodyweight exercise, you don't need a whole lot else. That's going to cover a lot.
Do you know Frank Zane told me that back when he was doing like Boy Scout camps and stuff, like teaching, he was teaching and stuff. He actually would just carry he had a 50 pounds on a single dumbbell that he'd carry in a pillowcase. And he would, Like, he talks about the fact that everyone says he's the most symmetrical. He would do single weight, like single dumbbell movements, because he could carry it in a pillowcase. So he just, would do single arm curls, single arm freaking shoulder presses, single arm chest presses, single dumbbell squats. Like, he would literally carry this stuff around, and that's all he had to do. And the other thing too is, if you're in an area like Dallas, don't be afraid to jump on your social media, make a post of a kettlebell and say, hey, I'm in the Dallas area. I really would love to get certified with this. If we get 20 guys, we can have, Onnit come up and do a cert right here at one of our local places. That's actually what one of our CrossFit places that were close to me in Iowa, they were talking about wanting to get steel mace certification. So I just told Isak, how many people do you need to be able to come and justify doing a clinic at a local club? And believe it or not, if you've got enough people, and it really doesn't take that much, you can have the whole show come to you and get a certification for that. That's another way to look at it.
And you'll know that your whole life.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can learn in a few days.
When it comes to the sugar, I actually really struggled several years ago with I got to an age where my metabolism just really changed. Kind of my hormone levels changed, and I just pretty much became hypoglycemic. And I went through, I got up to, I think, 251 pounds. I gained weight rapidly over the course of about 10 months. And I ended up getting, I kept telling doctors, like, something's different. I don't know what it is, but something's different about me. And it was pretty much, I just hit a point where I wasn't producing correctly the different type, my insulin, my testosterone, which all these things are important when it comes to like your muscle receptors. And, when it comes to sugar attaching in a muscle receptor, if you have a low testosterone number and you have a high insulin spike, it's a recipe for disaster. So I actually made some huge improvements. One, in the supplements that I take. Actually, before I used Onnit products, which Joe hooked me up with, because I told him I was trying some other stuff. I'm like, man, I am like gaining weight on this stuff, but it's not the weight that I want to gain. Once you start reading the labels, that's really the separator. When you look at labels and fillers, the more products that are on there where you can't pronounce them, those are products that are probably not supposed to even be in the body. So really what was happening was, I was almost overproducing insulin, literally just turning into this big fat storage machine. And any type of sugar that I have, and I'm still this way, if I have sugar for multiple days, like if I order dessert 3 or 4 days in a row on a vacation, I'll gain weight. I mean, I could pig out on protein or whatever, but or even high fat food. But if I eat sugar, I'm gaining weight like right now. So, I started paying attention to that, making sure I could read labels and make sure I could pronounce what's on the label. But also, I learned a really good trick when it comes to helping manage your insulin spikes. I always put a fat in my body before a sugar. So in other words, like if Monday nights 2-for-1 margaritas in Iowa, by the way. So I know I'm going to hit a margarita. So here's the 2 things that I was taught to do that have really helped. One is, when you're really active and your testosterone is naturally boosted, you help minimize that insulin spike. So if I know that we're having, me and my wife are going to go have margaritas on a Monday, I'll plan my workouts to be an evening workout to where I'll literally get done, go home, shower, get ready, we'll go. And that way when I show up and have my margarita, I'm still kind of jacked up from a good workout. And it really helps minimize your insulin spikes. And then on top of that, if you put a slow digestive fat in your stomach ahead of the sugar, then you're also going to dramatic
bottleneck everything. It just slows it down.
Yeah, you literally slow down this insulin spike so you don't have this massive crash. So
it's funny you mention this because this is exactly in this book right here, Own the Day with Aubrey Marcus.
Which part is it in?
It's
in the eating?
It's in the best way to drink. Best way to drink. So we time our workouts in the late afternoon, early evening. No matter what your tool of the trade is, whether that's cannabis or alcohol, that's going to be best absorbed post-workout because your body's craving glycogen at that point, right? And that's something Ben Greenfield has been big on is carbohydrate backloading, right? He'll hit his workouts not in a fasted state, but semi-fasted. He'll have most of his carbohydrates in the evening at dinner. And by doing that, he's bleeding off carbohydrates that he has stored from the night before. He's still getting the most out of his workouts, but he has like this, and this might be hard for someone who's type 1 diabetic, but for everyone else listening to this, eating your carbohydrates at night, if you're a carb eater, is going to dramatically impact how your body can use both fuel systems, using fat for fuel during the daytime, staying a bit more satiated from higher fat, higher protein, and then still getting carbohydrates to replenish the liver and the muscle glycogen in the evening. But, like we were saying earlier, if you start your day with a fucking donut or a bagel, 2 hours later, carbohydrates crash, you're going to be hungry for more carbohydrates. It's just the way it goes. So rather than going on that roller coaster all day long, keep things maintained nice and even with some MCTs, a little bit of good fat, some protein, have a nice salad, something else that's low carb for lunch. Then dinner, you can hit your carbohydrates. Wired to Eat, also a great book to read by my man Rob Wolf. We had him on the podcast here, so you can listen to that one. Excellent resource for figuring out which carbohydrates are right for you. All right, next.
Can I go jump on it? Jump on it. But they call me the avocado man because I always before I'll even drink my first margarita, I always try to start eating some avocado slices just to get that food in your stomach. That
you hit a little sea salt on there, or you just eat them plain?
I eat them. I'll just eat that thing.
I want the salt.
Really?
Yeah, I want the salt on there.
I'm not a big. I struggle with that. Like I know Ben's big in a lot of salt. I've never really been into salt, the taste of it. So I have just enough. But another thing you can do too, for those of you listening, this is like we've talked about some, nuts and bolts to a better way of, literally you're gonna if you decide, if nothing else, here's a couple easy fundamentals. One is something that I called halving. This is something that Frank Zane started me on the very first time I worked with him. Him and I used to trade archery for health, consultations. And one of the first things he did was he actually just had me have everything in relation to sugars and carbs. So I didn't change anything for the first year about how I normally go out and eat at the same places and whatever. If I went to, my local burger joint and got a burger, all I would do is immediately, take half of the French fries, slide them off the plate, take half the bun, put it off the plate. And that's what I started with. Half of the fries, half the bun. Then it got to the point where you start realizing I don't really even like those that much. So you naturally start eating even half of those. So then you get to the point where you're like, I'm going to give myself a few. I actually don't really need the bun. So apply that practice, take whatever you're doing now and just have the carbs or have the sugars. So if you're drinking 3 cans of Coke right now a day, cut it down to 2, then cut it down to 1. You're going to notice a big difference just in having carbs and sugars. Then the next thing is double the distance. This is something I started doing on top of what Frank had told me in relation to having. I started doubling the distance, and by that I mean every time I go to a parking lot, I don't try to find the closest spot. I park twice as far away as what I want to walk, just to get myself to walk twice as far. And then also try to do like your shopping or go through the grocery store at double the pace of what you would want to do. All these things are like super, super simple. They're super minimal. But if you're the type of person who's sitting there and saying, I don't know how I can really change my life, I don't know how I can turn it around, these are 2 super simple things, and they will compound on one another. Having, literally cutting in half those intakes of those 2 things and literally doubling your pace in life and maybe going twice as far to get to something simple, you're going to make a life change. It's just give it a month's time. You won't believe the difference. And it's going to be what you see is going to be your motivation to push it one step further.
Hell yeah, brother. We crushed that one question.
Nailed it.
We're going overtime here, but there's too many good questions, so I don't want to fucking cut. We're going over an hour on this podcast. I don't give a fuck. Let's see here. What are the best ways to improve metabolism? I've always just felt so exhausted, even while I was in the Army. Really needing to improve this aspect of my life to improve my overall health.
Who said it? You got to give him creds.
Halon8569.
All right. Halon.
So I would say, I mean, there's a few things here. One, to try to answer these a little shorter, I'm going to just throw out some resources, and then we can still add in our tidbits. But I think a great way to shift metabolism is to work on metabolic flexibility, which is a concept that Mark Sisson pioneered, or didn't pioneer, but talks quite a bit about in the keto reset diet. And this is not a prescription for everyone to go into ketosis for the rest of their life. I think that's bullshit. But it's this idea that if we do an 8-week diet that's low carbohydrate, high in fat, and moderate in protein, that will create metabolic flexibility. So when we go back to eating carbohydrates, we have a little less insulin resistant. We're a little bit better able to utilize that. Our pancreas has less workload for those 8 weeks. And then when we come back, everything works properly, right? And then, of course, Wired to Eat, where we can actually figure out which carbohydrates are doing the most damage and which are the best for us. Between those two books, I think you can figure out a lot. Working out fasted has been an excellent way for me to drop pounds. It's an excellent way to boost cardio. It's not the most fun. I don't have the most energy after that. If I have an interview with John Dudley this afternoon, I'm not going to fucking do fasted cardio first thing in the morning before that, because I might have a slightly less upstairs for that interview. But with that, on days where I know I have maybe an easier day or a little less to do at the office, fasted cardio can go miles for boosting metabolism throughout the day.
Yep. Well, another thing too is Aubrey's new book, Own the Day, Own Your Life. The very first chapter, there's actually very, very important principles to this. A lot of times people don't realize what their baseline is because their daily routine could slightly be off. Like, for example, I saw a guy when I was actually heading out to Rogan's, went to the airport. I got a coffee, literally got a black coffee, put full cream in it, nothing but cream. I wanted to have some fat. The guy next to me, he literally screwed the lid off the sugar and just started pouring it in. And I almost had enough time to Insta story it. I took my phone out, I unlocked it, hit camera, slid it to video, and he was just finishing up by the time I hit play. And it's like, dude, if you're that guy, you don't realize the reason you're feeling sluggish is because of the fact that you're literally riding this insulin train that is a never win battle for you ever. So I don't want to give away the book.
No, give it away. We already talked about this, so fucking hammer it home, man. Yeah.
And I actually put this to use. Part of the reason why I was having my morning coffee at the airport was because one of the things that Aubrey talks about is how you start your day different so that you actually wake up the body. There's 3 parts to that, and I'll cover just the one. The one that I found to be one of the most positive was the fact that you have to hydrate first thing in the morning, and coffee is not a good hydration tool. Hydrating properly, which he has a really good cocktail in there for a morning hydration. And
lemon,
it's important.
sea salt, water, yeah.
Yeah, it's lemon, Himalayan sea salt. And, it's nice to mix it up the night before, make sure it's room temperature. And literally I get up and just focus on hydrating, chugging down this hydration. And one of the things that hit home for me was that he talked about a lot of times when you're sleeping at night, you're in there sweating. I sweat a lot when I'm sleeping. If I'm in a super dream state and I'm huddled up in a little ball and I'm not spread out, I can get hot, and I'm sweating, and it's, literally you're losing hydration all through the night. And one of the things that he said that also hit home was, I drink continually throughout the day. I mean, I've probably drank at least a gallon of fluid today since this morning. And this since I left this morning to fly here and to right now, that's about the normal time I would have been sleeping. I couldn't imagine going that whole time and not being able to drink, which is essentially what you're doing when you're sleeping. You're not hydrating at all. So when you get up, your body's needing that hydration way more than it's needing, that coffee. So just changing your lifestyle that little bit to wake yourself up differently can literally completely change how your whole day is going to go from there on out.
Yeah, and coffee goes miles farther when you started the day hydrated. Just giving it that break. There's no doubt. All right, let's run one more here. I'm trying to think here. I want to get something that's specific. There's a few of these things coming in on odd training, but there's one that I wanted to say. There's one question in particular.
While you're finding that, when I came here, Kyle hooked me up with, they've got a really cool new stretching program here at Onnit. And man, the TK stretching people, dude,
they're phenomenal.
Yeah. I feel like a whole new person right now. He stretched me all across that table for an hour. Now I literally come straight into a podcast feeling like freaking Gumby, and literally my teeth are floating because I've got so many toxins floating around my body. I got to piss like a racehorse right now.
Unlock some shit.
Yeah.
Well, we'll hit this last one. It's kind of, there's a few questions that are all tackled around this, and I thought it'd be excellent. Obviously, I can chime in, but this is definitely more geared towards you. So we've got one on supplements that reduce inflammation. Obviously, there's no supplement that fixes a shitty diet, so cleaning up your diet is going to help the most. Joint oil from Onnit's an excellent supplement. It's got fish oil, which is excellent for inflammation, along with curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric. It's a big one. Last plug for Onnit. All right, the rest of his question. This is from the Brad of all Brads.
Oh gosh.
Any advice? There's no Brad that's more Bradlier.
Yeah.
Any advice on shoulder exercises that could help someone with a nagging shoulder injury, say a slight labrum tear or bicep tendonitis? Not cure, but maybe help management. Thanks, dude. So I know you're the man for this, since you're a fucking bionic arm. And we've got at least 3 or 4 more questions that are all similar to this. So hopefully we can bang all these out with one.
It's funny you pick Brad. He's kind of he's like a celebrity amongst my followers. Yeah. I don't know. That's a pretty loaded question because I've struggled with both of those. One of the things that I think is most important when it comes to, a lot of people assume that they have shoulder tears. And the reality is most people don't really have tears when they think they do. A lot of people just don't realize what inflammation and, actually having callousing and scarring in a joint or in a connection point. They don't realize that tendonitis can a lot of times feel more painful than a true tear. Like when I tore my shoulder, it didn't have near as much pain as when I deal with tendonitis every day. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's no doubt. In fact, I wasn't even sure I had an injury when I tore my right labrum.
Yep.
Because it just felt fine, until I was actually throwing punches or bench pressing.
Yep. So there's a couple things that are really important. Stretching and learning proper mobility movements are absolutely key. A really, really simple one that works wonders, and I actually heard about it on Rogan's podcast. One of the first things that I'll do is when I go into the gym is I'll actually just jump up on the pull-up bar and just let the weight of my body, I'll just literally hold on and just literally let the weight of my body elongate my shoulders and my biceps and my forearms and my back, and just as long as I can hold on, I'll do it. And I can feel stuff moving and clicking and self-aligning because just your natural body weight in that position, it's actually a very, very good thing to do. But, learning some basic mobility stretches, it might be worth it for you to, depending on your area, if you haven't ever seen these, is, to go to a physical therapy place. There's a lot of different chains around and stuff. But for one appointment, you could go in there and say, listen, all I want you to do is show me mobility stretches for scapular rotation, and also elbows biceps. Because for archers, those are going to be the main ones. And it's hard over a podcast to talk about these, but learning those basic stretches and incorporating those into, for me, my fitness also helps me monitor where my body's at. Like, I feel like I'm a good archer because my mind muscle connection is very strong because of my weightlifting. And I don't do a lot of heavy weights. I do a lot of negatives. So negatives, I think, connect mind and muscle movement a lot more.
A little more time under tension.
Yeah. So when I feel like there's a disruption there or there's a restriction in range of motion, I know something's binding up. One thing that you can do is there's like scraping tools that you can buy. I bought some on Amazon. And they're more or less just like flat plates. It's almost, they're in different shapes, but it's almost the size of a cell phone.
Rogue Fitness has some.
Okay.
I think we might carry some. Dr. Kelly Starrett, who wrote Becoming a Supple Leopard, I first heard him on Rogan's. He's got mobilitywod.com. There's over 500 free videos, all on how to detail your body head to toe.
Okay,
using bands, voodoo floss, which was another question we had. Voodoo floss does work. It's fucking excellent.
What is that?
Voodoo floss are like these rubber bands you'd wrap around a joint like elbow or knee, and then you move through range of motion with that. And it basically tacks the joint, the muscles at the insertion point, and that opens it up by restricting blood flow. You take it off, you get a gush of blood flow and oxygen and nutrients. In addition to that, it feeds slack through the length of the muscle belly. Most people, if you stretch and you're locked down, say your hamstring's super tight behind the knee and you have knee pain.
Yep.
So you go to do a hamstring stretch, you might stretch the middle belly of that. And so the analogy he uses is if you tie a rubber band in a knot and you stretch the rubber band, that knot's getting tighter even though the rubber band is stretching, right? So we attack the knot at the insertion point, and that feeds slack throughout the entire system. So Kelly Starrett has that website. He also has Becoming a Supple Leopard. It's the fucking Bible on body work. All self-work with lacrosse balls, bands, grass thin, and a lot of these tools that you're talking about.
Yep.
And I think it's an excellent resource for anybody. It's available on Amazon.
One way it was put to me that made the most sense was, someone said, it's a lot like if you have long hair. When you come out of the shower, if your hair isn't laying right, you have to brush it through. You have to brush it to where all of the fibers are literally going in one direction. Same is true with a muscle. When a muscle's working and and it's contracting, the fibers are sliding past one another. They have to elongate, they have to contract. But when they're pretty much like misaligned and scarred up or knotted up, it's you're not getting that full motion, and that a lot of times that's where you feel these hard like cartilage and scarring areas. And like a really good shiatsu therapist will actually break those apart, which is painful as hell. But I've had times where I would have bet $1 million I had a torn pec or I had a torn bicep, and literally go to someone like that. I have a guy that I use every time I pass Tulsa. I go to a guy named Lester Phillips, works at Body Masters, and all he does is literally break apart all of my movable joint areas. He just gets in there and breaks apart that scarring. And it's a life changer. I mean, it literally is a game changer. And for those of you out there who feel like you have a tear, I would say focus on the mobility before you jump to the conclusion of thinking that, you're in a repetitive sport. Actually, Lester told me that a lot of what he sees in my arms are very, very related to fighters. My left elbow always has a lot of scarring, misalignment in the fibers, and he says it's from the constant hyperextension of the bow firing. He said same for punchers, fighters where they're just hyperextension. They develop,
reaching out with that jab nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. They develop that same thing, whereas a lot of guys that are constantly cocked with the same arm, they have that scarring in a different area on the opposite arm, which is equivalent to me at full draw. I'm literally, it's almost like jab arm is my bow arm.
Always throwing the jab, always keeping the right hand cocked.
And getting those few things worked out, I go by there about 3 or 4 times a year, and it totally changes my life. I mean, I think so many people so many people are quick to rush out and want to buy, the new arrow or something like that. And, especially archers, you don't see yourself as an athlete. I view you as an athlete because it's something that is very repetitive to a certain symmetry of the body, and that's going to cause misalignment. So getting your balance back in check is going to be super, super valuable to longevity, but also to accuracy.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, where can people find you online, and where can they listen to your glorious podcast?
Well, they can find me online at Nock On TV, NOCKON TV, not a K.
There's no K in there.
Yeah, there's no fighting K at the front end of that. And yeah, like YouTube, if you want to learn, watch videos, YouTube, it's Nock On Archery. And I have a lot of tutorials, how-tos, all that good stuff. And yeah, Nock On podcast. I'm going to have to, you're learning archery today.
That's right, brother.
So
I want to get to it.
You're going to be on my podcast. You're going to be my next guest. So when we're done, we're going to pick up on these questions for Nock On podcast.
Fuck yeah.
See how you ended up. Not missing any teeth or still have all the skin on your forearm. Should be good.
Hell yeah, brother. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
All right. All right. All right. All right.